Welcome back, friends. This is the Changelog. I'm Adam Stacoviak, and this week on the Changelog, we're talking to Nadia Otoayo, founder of StoryGraph. Nadia started out as a one-woman dev and product team and has had to adjust and maneuver along the way to becoming the Amazon free alternative to Goodreads. We talk about the importance of customer research, the iterative nature of customer research, and what it takes to synthesize and analyze the findings to guide product development, the technical challenges and learnings she's faced while building StoryGraph. For example, at several points, they faced challenges in handling an influx of users and had to re-architect the system. We also talk about the business model of StoryGraph and how they generate revenue through Plus subscriptions and partnerships with publishers for book giveaways. A huge, massive thank you to our friends and our partners at Fly.io, the home of Changelog.com. With Fly, you can launch your app near your users. Fly transforms containers into micro VMs that run on their hardware in 30 plus regions on 6 continents. And Antarctica is coming soon. Wink, wink. Launch an app for free at Fly.io. What's up, friends? This episode of the Changelog is brought to you by our friends over at Vercel. And I'm here with Lee Robinson, VP of Product. Lee, I know you know the tagline for Vercel, develop, preview, ship, which has been perfect, but now there's more after the ship process. You have to worry about security, observability, and other parts of just running an application in production. What's the story there? What's beyond shipping for Vercel?
Yeah, when I'm building my side projects or when I'm building my personal site, it often looks like develop, preview, ship. I try out some new features. I try out a new framework. I'm just hacking around with something on the weekends. Everything looks good. Great. I ship it. I'm done. But as we talk to more customers, as we've grown as a company, as we've added new products, there's a lot more to the product portfolio of Vercel nowadays to help pass that experience. So when you're building larger, more complex products, and when you're working with larger teams, you want to have more features, more functionality. So tangibly, what that means is features like our Vercel Firewall product to help you be safe and to have that layer of security. Features like our logging and observability tool so that you can understand and observe your application in production, understand if there's errors, understand if things are running smoothly and get alerted on those. And also then really an expansion of our integration suite as well too, because you might already be using a tool like a Datadog, or you might already be using a tool at the end of this software development lifecycle that you want to integrate with to continue to scale and secure and observe your application. And we try to fit into those as well too. So we've kind of continued to bolster and improve the last mile of delivery.
That sounds amazing. So who's using the Vercel platform like that? Can you share some names?
Yeah, I'm thrilled that we have some amazing customers like Under Armour, Nintendo, Washington Post, Zapier, who use Vercel's fronting cloud to not only help scale their infrastructure, scale their business and their product, but then also enable their team of many developers to be able to iterate on their products really quickly and take their ideas and build the next great thing.
Very cool. With zero configuration for over 35 frameworks, Vercel's frontend cloud makes it easy for any team to deploy their apps. Today, you can get started with a 14-day free trial of Vercel Pro or get a customized enterprise demo from their team. Visit vercel.com/changelogpod to get started. That's vercel.com/changelogpod.
Nadia Otoayo, founder and CEO of StoryGraph. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We are excited to have you, not just founder, not just CEO, but pretty much solo dev, right? One woman dev shop building this, what I will describe as like a Goodreads competitor or killer. Let's call it a killer, shall we?
She wasn't ready for that one.
She's like, well.
But it sounds good. Let's go with it.
We tend to say alternative. That's the first time.
Alternative.
That's because you're being polite.
Very British of me.
Very British. This is a really cool thing. Before we get into the details, I like this idea. And this might not be your idea, but I like it anyways, which is there are cool web products that people love, and then they have so much success that they eventually get purchased by big tech. And then over time, people love them less. Let's just say that that's a trend, of which Goodreads seems to be an instance of the trend. And I just feel like that's a place where entrepreneurs can just like look at that situation and then be like, what if there was something like this, but good again? And you could like have a bunch of founders just go after that, like meetup.com, just throwing that one out there. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about StoryGraph. I'm just thinking somebody should disrupt meetup.com. That's my point there. But is that what you were thinking with Goodreads? Like, oh, I used to love Goodreads and now I don't anymore. And so let's build something?
It's actually pretty funny because it wasn't like that at all.
At all? Okay.
In fact, okay, maybe at all is, a bit far, stretching it.
Okay, maybe a little bit like that, but mostly not.
A little bit. But I purposefully, for a long time, I even fought the notion that I was building a Goodreads alternative, mainly because when I had used Goodreads since 2012, and I loved it. There was a time where it was my favorite app. The thing is, I was very simple with my usage. I found the book I was reading, I marked it, I added a star rating. I rarely even added text to my reviews. So for me, Goodreads did everything I needed. It wasn't when I got into tech. So I went to a software bootcamp in end of 2013. So as I was becoming a developer and getting more immersed in the tech world, I did start to notice or think, wait a minute, Goodreads has not changed once since I've been using it. When you get into tech and you learn about how websites and apps are developed, and you notice with other products that you use, oh, that's a new design, that's a new feature. I would pay more attention to release notes, things like that. There was never anything with Goodreads. So I do remember thinking, it's a bit strange that it's not developed at all, especially since it's owned by Amazon. Like I would think that, but I wasn't angry about it. I wasn't mad about it because it did what I needed it to do. And then fast forward to 2019, when I started working on this product in earnest, originally, it was just one of my side projects. And it wasn't even a Goodreads alternative. It was a Goodreads companion app.
Oh.
So I was hooking into the Goodreads API to basically create a nice dashboard of all of your shelves. And you could see your percent through of how much you'd read of each of the shelves. That's what it was, because Goodreads didn't do that. So it wasn't even meant to be an alternative. But then when I started doing customer research, because I was having such a blast and I was like, oh, I'd love to build something in books full time. Let me see if there is a need or a pain point. All of the pain points I was getting from the people I was speaking to were all Goodreads related. So now I'm putting together what would I need to build, and it starts looking a little bit originally just a replacement of the recommendations portion, and then eventually a more fully fledged alternative. But for the longest time, I told myself, especially because throughout the first year, I was genuinely solo. Like my co-founder, Rob, hadn't come into the picture yet. So I was genuinely solo. And I thought to myself, don't just change the project or product to be a Goodreads alternative, for several reasons. One being, it's very easy to get intimidated by that, especially when I've got nothing right now and it's just me and I'm building an alternative to an Amazon product that's, huge and has dozens of developers, if not more. So that's one. Two, it's going to end up being very limiting for my product vision, because I would just end up looking at Goodreads and trying to do what they did, but better, which isn't compelling enough. And so I wanted to look at it as I'm building a new product in the book space for avid readers, or maybe to get people into reading. And I will follow the pain points and see what comes out of that. And it wasn't until we got to a certain size that it made sense to be like, we're a Goodreads alternative. Because at that point, it was like the core of the product. We had our niche, which was the moods and the pace. The core of the product had been fleshed out. And so at this point, now we need to advertise ourselves as a Goodreads alternative so that people see it and go, oh yeah, I don't like Goodreads. I'll try this thing.
A lot of direction we can go there, especially with the alternative section of it. I'm curious about and I do want to dive into that as well, but I'm curious about the customer research aspect, because in the pre-call you mentioned full say to skip that part. And I know that I'm definitely one of those people because I just want to get to the thing, right? I want to microwave this product into existence and suddenly be hitting product market fit and being amazing, right? Like that's what we all want. Can we just get to the millions quickly?
Yes. Please.
And that's not how it works. And sometimes I think even with like what we've done here with the changelog over the years, we've found our way by finding what we love about what we want to build. And we don't know that until we talk to the people that we intend to serve, right? Like a product isn't just simply you creating something and people loving it. It's you understanding what they want and giving them what they want. So how did you find out how to give them what they want?
So I was super lucky in that my first and only real job in software was at Pivotal Labs. And so I worked there for a year and a half, and I met like people who were at the top of their field in software engineering, but also product management and design. So from that, I'd already picked up the importance of customer interviews, approaches to do customer research, things like that. So I already had a base there. And then I'd also read, the standard. I'd read The Lean Startup. I'd read The Mum Test by Rob Fitzpatrick. So I'd also read a few books that helped me be very cognizant of the need and importance of customer feedback and iterating on that, but also the pitfalls that people fall into. So when I had that first week of working on my side project and loving it, also before that, I'd also had experiences of when customer research was not done well in prior products, or I ran a business for a year and a bit before starting this. And I saw what happens when customer research isn't made important, or when the whole team is not bought into that. And so I remember that when I was getting excited about building something in the book space, my first thing was stop, pause, gather everything you know about customer research. This has to be important, because the worst thing, especially because I didn't have a full-time job and I was just living off of my savings. I had 5 years of runway. At the point at which I started this, I had 4 years of runway. So it was very vital that I didn't waste my time. So from the beginning, I had to fight the urge to just build it and hope that everyone would love it. So I immediately was like, right, I need to do customer research. And the things that I knew then were, I need to have a clear hypothesis of what I'm doing. I need to have a script, because a script is what stops you from going off on tangents, accidentally asking leading questions, things like that. It helps you before you go into it that if you get the answers to your questions, then you'll be able to figure out what the results of your hypothesis. And I knew that I needed to have an effective synthesis method, so a way to analyze what I'd heard. And so my first round of research I did, the very first round was demoing actually the product that I'd already built, which since then I very rarely do product demos and interviews now, because I just think it's kind of leading. You're showing someone something and you're kind of like, would you use this? Do you like this? And actually, it's very easy for people to just say, yeah, sure, I would. And actually, that's what basically happened in the first round of interviews I did. And through my learnings from the Mum Test, I learned that was people being polite. And actually, I needed to put a product aside and just figure out pain points with avid readers. And so my first round of research was, I think it was just more discovery phase of, do avid readers have any pain points? And after I interviewed about, 5 to 6 people or so, I was able to go through everything they said. I record all my interviews. I watch them back. I take out snapshots of thoughts, phrases, things like that, and group them into themes. And there was a key theme of, I don't have one place to get consistent, high quality recommendations. So then I take that piece and I think, what's the next round? And the next round is, well, how do people try to figure out how people currently find books, or what are their current pain points with recommendations now? And so then I do that round. And then I get to the point after doing a few rounds of, ultimately people want to find books based on mood, sentiment, vibe, and there's no way to do that. And it's like, then I keep going until I get to the point where I'm like, here's a very basic feature set. And this basic feature set is people can key in the mood that they're looking for, and then they get a book recommendation, and then I built that very basic version. And then I let people use it. I go back to the people who I interviewed, I put it in front of them, And then a week later, I book in calls with them again. And I ask them, like, did you log into this app? Tell me more about. So I just try and ask questions about their behavior as opposed to like, did you like it? Or you know what I mean? Just really trying to basically treat it quite scientifically as much as possible. And so it's just through this like iterative process of always having a hypothesis or a key question that I'm trying to answer, interviewing about 5 to 8 people, synthesizing that, breaking down their learnings, and just using that to guide the next step and just continually doing that. And I've continued to do that to this day is what has a big factor of our success in that we are building what people want.
Mm. Those questions you answered or asked seemed very open-ended versus closed. Like, do you like it as yes or no, right? You can just get a yes or no or some version of politeness, right? But if you say, explain to me how you feel when you do X, you get an explanation, not a yes or no, which even with a demo, I wondered if you felt like you were almost kind of selling it, right? Like, because you're demoing it, it's almost like, would you use this? That's kind of damaging to the process because they probably feel like you're done and you're looking for users, not feedback, and unless that's actually what you asked for. But the open-ended questions makes a lot of sense because you're going to get a lot more from that versus simply a yes or no closed-ended kind of question.
Yeah. And so, after that first interview with the demo, I've stopped doing demos. And I would say that the questions are the power of having them be more open-ended. So I would say they're kind of the middle ground between yes and no and completely open-ending. Like, how do you feel? I guess it might be like, how would you describe this product, or what's your biggest pain point, and they could say anything. I think that's why when you do your synthesis and you break down how did each person answer this question, and despite them saying different things, if you can say, wow, these 3 people ultimately said the same thing, that's a key insight because the question was open and yet they all expressed a pain point with recommendations, or, you know what I mean? And that's why you gravitate towards those things that a handful of people have all said the same thing, despite the question being very open.
With questions like those, small sample sizes, right? 5 to 8 people per round. So it sounds like I was thinking like, how do you synthesize open-ended questions? Because I have a similar situation, not on a product, but on a survey we do for Front-End Feud, where we're trying to get open-ended questions. This is like Family Feud. Mm-hmm. So the question is like, how do you feel about AI? Well, we want to be able to categorize those and actually synthesize them down into groups. And we can't put multiple choice because that ruins the whole game. Like, you have to guess what the audience was going to say. And so it's a text input, but I'm trying to group by in my SQL query eventually, Mm-hmm. And that's difficult. And so I've learned tricks like, say, like, in a word, how do you feel about this? And now they're going to give me one word and I can actually work with that better. But this is a sample size of 100 to 200 people. And with 5 to 8, I think you can just read them and like in your brain be like, these are actually saying the same thing. So you don't have to actually do any data normalization. But I wonder how you handle biases in participants. Is it always somebody new? I mean, because if you're asking the same person, they're the easiest person to go back to, right? Because they already know the process and maybe they provided good feedback. How do you handle that? Because small group, especially when you're starting, there's very few users, or it's all your friends. This is the hard part with questions like, would you use this? Because your friends want to have your back and be like, of course I would, but that might not be true.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
That's actually a key part of the process, which I neglected to mention. Part of when you're setting up a round is also deciding who are you interviewing, what qualifies them. The first rounds were just friends, people I knew. But to mix it up a bit, I also cold DM'd book bloggers from Instagram just to have some strangers and things like that. So I did that. So I had the earliest rounds were a mix of friends and strangers from the books community. So that was kind of adding some variety.
Plus maybe a little grassroots marketing, right? You get some enthusiasts to know about the StoryGraph through that.
Yes. And then I had people obviously following the account as well, which I was just building up. And again, no product. I was just posting my own book reviews of what I was reading and then DMing people saying, I'm actually working on a product. There was a lot of that in the early days, lots of Twitter and Instagram DMs. So that's one. But then I also had this landing page up where I said, we're building a tool for avid readers. And I put a subtitle being like, if you read 52 books a year, and you're interested in this, put your email here. And the reason why I said that is because I thought the longest I'd want to wait for feedback on anything, like a recommendation, is a week. So if I'm getting someone who's reading 52 books a year, if I recommend a book to them, they'll hopefully read it in a week, and then I can interview them or just check in, send them a survey. Like, was this actually a good recommendation, to see if the product was working?
Mm-hmm.
Since we've been bigger, I have depending on the research round, I'll have different criteria for who I want to interview. So for example, there was one point where I felt stuck in product development. I wasn't sure what to focus on, but I was seeing now and again people tweeting and saying things like, oh, I love StoryGraph. I use it every day. And we had not built the app to be used every day. So I was like, what is it about these people who use it every day? What is StoryGraph doing for them? What are their behaviors that make them use it every day? And can we use that to learn about what are the most compelling parts of the app? And so I just did a tweet and Instagram post saying, we're looking for people who log into the app at least once a day. And that was that, At the end of 2022, I was doing a big redesign. And so now I need to make sure that the redesign works across desktop and mobile. But also, I needed to make sure that it handled all of our common UX pain points that made people drop off or struggle to use it, but also didn't upset the people who were happily using it and had a great time. So I actually had 6 cohorts, and it was across, the matrix was desktop and mobile. And then it was like predominantly desktop, predominantly mobile. And then it was use it, very happy, no issues, use it but struggle, stopped using it because I couldn't figure out the UX. So I had 6 groups, and I sent out a Google form, and I put that everywhere. I put that on Instagram. I put that on Twitter. I put that in my newsletter. And so then when I was sorting out my research rounds, I would just filter that and be like, right, I'm trying to test the mobile design now. So mobile, and we made sure that basically by the time we implemented the design, it had passed to the research rounds for all those categories. So a key part of customer research is talking to the right people.
Right.
And also, another thing is, at the beginning of my scripts, I always start by saying, I'm doing a customer research round. And for this round, I'm speaking to insert identity here, because it always gives the person a chance to go, that's not me. So in case for any reason they click the wrong box or whatever, it's just like a no. I sometimes get people reply to my asks and say, I don't use the app every day, but I would love to talk with you for half an hour. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you would. No. So, because I really stress, like, this is who you must be. I haven't actually had a case of someone yet book in and say, oh, I'm not that person, but I want to talk to you. But I have had people email to check, to be like, I'm not that person, but can I? And I'm like, no, that's very not useful to me. And I will end an interview. I think I have ended an interview maybe once or twice where it's kind of been like, oh, I don't think this will be valuable for either of us. So I rarely interview the same person twice unless they're part of a specific, I had specific, very structured alpha and beta rounds. But beyond that, it's always different people.
Mm-hmm. You're doing all this yourself?
Mostly. More recently, I have Abby, who works for us part-time. I kind of taught her or showed her how I did my synthesis and kind of passed that on to her. So she has been helping me with the synthesis now, but I still do all the interviews. And I'm probably at the point where, especially because it is a script, I will probably get to the point where I'll be able to hand that off to Abby, but there's no need right now. And I think as I'm the dev, it's working very well for us that I'm so close to our customers and so close to the research.
Mm-hmm. And so close to the social media and so close to everything. You're very close to everything.
Yeah, I run the Instagram and Twitter. And the funniest comments I get are, or when I get comments like in the app or the Play Store reviews, and it will be people like, the founder's so nice. Sometimes she comes on Instagram and does an Instagram story. And it's always me. It's just that sometimes I'll do a video and I'll be like, hi, everyone. This is what's happening. But it's always me. The other funny thing in the dev side is people who assume I'm like just a social media person. And they'll say something and they'll say, pass this on to your dev team. But they'll talk at me and they'll often be a dev themselves. And they'll try and explain something to me As in, this person probably will not understand what I'm saying. So let me explain it very clearly and slowly so that then they can pass it on to the dev team. Or they'll say, can you pass me on to someone who can explain this thing? And I'll be like, oh, I can explain it because I built it. So like, go ahead. And they're always like very surprised.
Well, it is surprising to have one person do all that. That's for sure.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
How long you been doing it? And how often do you do it? And tell us a little bit about the growth story, because this started as a side project. Seems like very successful growth so far. I mean, many of us solo devs probably envious of the traction that you've gotten, because it's enviable. Tell the folks how it's been going.
Yeah. So I started this, it was 2019 was that year where it was a side project. So I entered January of 2019 with 4 years of runway. And I'd always been entrepreneurial and always wanted to do my own thing. And I was coming off the back of 2 failed co-founder partnerships. So I was like, I'm just going to code by myself. I don't need anybody. I have runway. I don't need to get a job. I'm just going to build stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started working on that. I explained how I got to the point where I was like, right, this is interesting to me. That was the founder product fit side. So I got the founder product fit very early. And that's what made me properly say, let me do customer research properly. Let me start up an Instagram account. Let me see what I can do here. So after 3 months of just customer research, so after I first showed that demo to people, and I thought, no, you can't be showing a demo to people. You need to do this properly. I put the product away. I spent 3 months doing customer research. That was just talking to people. And I got to the point where I said, okay, I have enough to build an alpha. And the alpha was literally just a personal recommendation service. And so it was a whole basic Rails app, but all it was really sending emails to me, and I would like send emails back essentially. So someone would fill out a form and it'd be like, your recommendation will come soon. I'd get an email saying, this person needs a book that fits this. I'd spend however long it took trying to find a unique find. And then I would do something in Rails admin or on the console or something to just generate an email being like, your recommendation is ready. No, actually, I think I had a backend in the app where I would put it in and then it would send an email to them to check for their recommendation. So that was that. And then I did that for about a month or 2. And then I felt like I'd exhausted all of my learnings from the alpha. And here's the thing. Remember how I said I was looking for people who read a book a week because then they would read the recommendation. Well, what happened? I check in with the people and they'd say, the recommendation you gave me looks great. Unfortunately, I've got to finish the book I'm reading right now. And then I've got the stack by my bedside table, And that's when the pain point transitioned from I need a recommendation to how do I know what to pick up next? Because actually I do have a lot of choice and I want to make sure that I'm always picking up the next best book for me. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to build a more fully fleshed out app, because just a recommendation service on its own is not going to stand, because people, they're getting a recommendation, but they're not going to read it for months. And they need help getting through that pile that's been sitting by their bed for months and months and months. So that's when I spent a couple months just heads down building a beta, still just me, completely solo. And at the same time that I said I'm going to start building a beta, I started a newsletter, because my worry was I'm going to spend 2 months building a more fully fleshed out product and I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm going to lose all the momentum from all the people I've spoken to over the last 9 months. And I also don't want to build something and then have nobody ready to try it when it's ready. So I started a newsletter, and it was 100 people who I'd basically interviewed or had heard of the product or something like that. And I just started sending it was like a weekly, as one of my friends said, it's like it's your weekly stand-up and you are just like sending out the email because it's just you doing stand-up. And I was like, yeah, it's holding me accountable, but it's also keeping up momentum. Like, this is what I'm doing this week. And also it was a bit like, I have to send this email every Monday. I can't get to next Monday and have done nothing. So it was it really kept me accountable to just keep doing stuff each week. So I had something interesting to say. So 2 months, launched the beta. And that was just general, like sharing it on Twitter, things like that. We got to 100 users at the beginning of Jan 2020. Then I was talking about it more. Some bookstagrammers started talking about it more. When I say bookstagrammers, it's the term of like book bloggers on Instagram. It's called Bookstagram.
Bookstagram?
Yeah. And so Bookstagrammers would talk about it. And we got to 1,000 users in June of 2020. And also we're in the midst of a pandemic. There's a whole story there. I live alone as well. So there's a whole piece of like going through this product, growing and growing, and just like in the midst of a pandemic, stuck in my flat, just doing this thing. Actually, you know what? It was actually, obviously, the pandemic was not great. Don't wish that we had a pandemic, but it worked out really well for me in terms of that I didn't have to, I listened to a lot of how I built this, and you always hear stories of like people saying, I became such a bad friend. I missed weddings. I missed parties. I canceled late all the time. And that really, even though I had never had any sort of success like that, it really freaked me out because I pride myself in being super reliable. I'm always there. I'm always on time. And the thought of, would I ever have a product that meant that I would like cancel on people or be flaky or whatever? I hope not. But we did all of our exploding in 2020. Like some of the biggest part, lots of it was in 2020. There was nobody to cancel on, no like being out and PagerDuties going off. I didn't have to deal with that, which was nice. I didn't have to let anybody down or anything like that. So what happened was mid 2020, there were some viral tweets, and it was funny because the people who tweeted were just, they weren't anybody like famous or well known. They literally had about 200 followers, but the tweets just hit, they just resonated with a bunch of people because essentially they were calling out a bunch of factors. The main tweet that kicked everything off, it essentially like hit on a key points that were very salient at that time. So one was it, appealed to the book Twitter community. So it was calling out to book Twitter. And it basically spoke about, we all hate Goodreads. It's so annoying. It called out the fact that, so it said there's a great independent alternative.
Nice.
It referenced the fact that it was run by a Black woman, which this was like a week after George Floyd's murder. So at this time, there was this big push to support Black creators. So that was mentioned and that was jumped on. And then also it was mentioned the fact that Goodreads owned Amazon. And at the time in the pandemic, there was a lot of anti-Amazon sentiment because of, I think, Amazon's profits had been released or something and everyone was struggling in a pandemic. And it was like, and look, Jeff Bezos is still rich and getting richer. And in general, in publishing, there was a lot of anti-Amazon sentiment because they have a monopoly on huge swathes of the industry. And so this one tweet, which had all of this packed in, just exploded. And we had like thousands of likes and retweets. And I'm, minding my business, cracking on with some code. And I see these emails coming in because back then I got an email every time somebody signed up and kicked off a Goodreads import. So at the time, the maximum we'd ever had was 8. And I'm seeing like 8 emails, dozens of emails coming in. Like, what's going on? Going to Twitter, seeing what's going on. This system was not made to handle like more than about 8 at a time. And it was actually with over 3 days, we got, tens of thousands. And the other thing was that the email said, your Goodreads import is underway. But to 20,000 people, this was a lie. 20,000 people got an email saying your Goodreads import was underway. It was not underway. It was on a sidekick queue. And this was the first time I had to deal with a sidekick queue that had, the queue never had anything in it. And now it had
lots of stuff in it.
20,000 things in it. Oh, so we also had to stop the imports while at this point, my co-founder Rob had joined me and we had to stop the imports because we needed to re-architect everything. He was managing some servers on his side, so he needed to re-architect all of that. I just needed to sort out my code because it was not ready to handle lots of, it just wasn't performing. I can't even remember some of the stuff I was doing, but some of the loops, it just was not ready for this scale.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that. And that took 2 weeks to get the app back up and running again. But from that time, we just kept on growing by at least 1,000 users each day, signups. And then since that time, so that was 2020, so from middle of 2020 to now, essentially it's been steady growth with the odd spike when some social media, especially a book influencer, makes a YouTube video about us or a TikTok, pops off. And then we've had the odd media. So we had an article in the New Statesman, which is a newspaper over here, about the headline was why Goodreads is bad for books. And so we were mentioned as an up and coming alternative that brought in thousands of users. And yeah, we've just been steadily growing since then. And behind the scenes, I'm still sticking with my customer research focused approach.
Love it.
That's intense. Very intense. The queue would have like just, it'd have crushed me.
You just said something that reminded me of a point I wanted to hit on. When you asked me the last question, you said I wasn't in an enviable position. And actually, there's a key part of this story. So I always was entrepreneurial and I always wanted to have something successful. And I remember, following all the indie developer forums and things, I was like, I need to start a B2B company because that's how I'm going to like make money fast. I can start charging from day one. It suits not getting venture capital. There was a time in my past where I was all about, like when I was younger, I was all about like, yeah, VC, like venture capitals. And then over the years, reading more about it and seeing certain stories and, just understanding more about that world, realizing that's not the type of company I wanted to build. So I was like, B2B is the way. And so I always thought like I fell into a B2C company because a freemium B2C company used by millions of users is not what you want as a solo dev who doesn't want funding. It's just not what you want. And I remember when we had that first initial spike, when we had those tweets, we had all these tens of thousands of users trying to use it. I felt stuck for a while because I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to do with my code. And I was worried. And I remember, I had to take a step away from my computer. I remember going into my dark bathroom and like sitting in there and literally saying, I thought I wanted this. I don't want this. And also saying to myself, is this it? Like, are you going to die now because you actually got the users you wanted and you can't handle it? So now the product dies. And also, I always say that I never actually said this, but I feel like it was on the tip of my tongue to just be like, oh, I can't do this. But I wouldn't allow myself to actually say it. So I remember saying, like, nope, that's not you. You're not going to say that. You're going to get out of this bathroom and you're going to go back at your desk and you're going to fix it. But for a while, there was a period of time where I thought, I don't want this. This is like awful. How did I end up in this situation where I'm building a company that's not making me any money, so I can't survive like this? I don't want to get VC funding. And I felt like I was trapped in it. And we are profitable now, which is great. But for years, especially as it was growing, I was like, I feel like I'm stuck. What am I going to do? Because my money is going down. And the costs are going up.
Right.
What's up, friends? I'm here with one of my new friends, Zane Hamilton from CIQ. So, Zane, we're coming up on a hard deadline with the CentOS end of life later this year in July, and there are still folks out there considering what their next move should be. Then last year, we had a bunch of change around Red Hat Enterprise Linux that makes it, quote, less open source in the eyes of the community, with many saying, RHEL is open source, but where is the source and why can't I download and install it? Now, Rocky Linux is fully open source, and CIQ is a founding support partner that offers paid support for migration, installation, configuration, training, etc. But what exactly does an enterprise or a Linux sysadmin get when they choose the free and open source Rocky Linux, and then ultimately the support from CIQ if they need it?
There's a lot going on in the enterprise Linux space today. There's a lot of end of life of CentOS. People are making decisions on where to go next. The standard of what an enterprise Linux looks like tomorrow is kind of up in the air. What CIQ is doing is we're trying to help those people that are going through these different decisions that they're having to make and how they go about making those decisions. And that's where our expertise really comes into play. A lot of people who have been through very complex Linux migrations, be it from the old days of migrating from AIX or Solaris onto Linux, and even going from version to version, because to be honest, enterprise Linux version to version has not always been an easy conversion. It hasn't been. And you will hear that from us. Typically, the best idea is to do an in-place upgrade. Not always a real easy thing to do. But what we've done is we have started looking at and securing a path of how can we actually go through that? How can we help a customer who's moving from CentOS 7 because of the end of life in July of this year what does that migration path look like and how can we help? And that's where we're looking in ways to help automate from an admin perspective. If you're working with us, we've been through this, we can actually go through and build out that new machine and do a lot of the back end manual work for you so that all you really have to do at the end of the day is validate your applications up and running in the new space. And then we automate the switch over. So we've worked through a lot of that. There's also the decisions you're making around, I'm paying a very large bill for something I'm not necessarily getting the most value out of. I don't want to continue down that path. We can help you make that shift over to an open source operating system, Rocky Linux, and help drive what's next, help you be involved in a community and help make sure that that environment you have is stable. It's going to be validated by the actual vendors that you're using today. And that's really where we want to be as a partner from not just an end user perspective, but as an industry perspective. We are working with a lot of those top tier vendors out there of certifying Rocky, making sure that it gets pushed back to the RESF, making sure that we can validate that everything is there and secure that needs to be there, and helping you on that journey of moving. And that's where we, CIQ, really show our value on top of an open source operating system is we have the expertise. We've done this before. We're in the trenches with you, and we're defining that path of how to move forward.
Okay, ops and sysadmin folks out there, what are you choosing? CentOS is end of life soon. You may be using it, but if you want a support partner in the trenches with you, in the open source trenches with you, check out CIQ. They're the founding support partner of Rocky Linux. They've stood up the RESF, which is the home for open source enterprise software, the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation, that is. They've helped to orchestrate the Open ELA, a collaboration created by and upheld by CIQ, Oracle, and SUSE. Check out Rocky Linux at rockylinux.org, the RESF at resf.org. And of course, if you need support, check out our friends at CIQ at ciq.com. Did you have a business plan, though? I think you have alluded to quite well that you've had a product plan.
Yes.
And a product plan is not a business plan. So did you think about the business while building the product?
I did. I did think about the business while building the product. And pre-building the product, my plan was always, because I was still like, how can I make this B2B somehow? So I said, what I'm going to do is publishers, I'm going to make give publishers a platform to connect to their readers so they would have a space on the app. And also, maybe there's a way that I can do these reports, like these industry reports or reader reports, where it's like all anonymized data, but publishers can see trends of everyone is looking for like a dark fantasy romance. And it doesn't there's not like commissioned more dark fantasy romance books. So things like that, where it'd be like insights. And because we had the moods, which no one else had, we would have different insights, unique insights to specific things that people were looking for.
Yeah.
But two things. One is I wanted to kind of avoid anything that was data, even though giving user data, even though it would have been anonymized and would have been more trends. But two, I had a chat with a friend, colleague, kind of sometimes mentor, Tama Salah. And he said to me, the best businesses always make money or get value directly from their customers. Like they don't have a middle person, like a middle entity. And if you're going down this publisher plan, you're going to have a middle entity. It's not direct. Oh, sorry. The other thing is I didn't want to do ads. That was another thing. If I could avoid ads, that would be great. One of the things that people hated on Goodreads were the ads. So I was thinking, okay, maybe it is freemium then. And so really the thing that made us start to build out the paid plan was just our costs. We were spending thousands of dollars a month to keep everything running, like on the highest Heroku plans, and the database. Every time we had a spike, we needed to upgrade to the next database. We were getting to the highest tier. What happens when the highest tier runs out? What do we do? And it felt like every time we got an influx of users, just our costs went up. So we needed to do something about it. And so that's when I just made up a paid plan. I literally made a page, but it didn't exist. I said the plus plan coming at this point, it would have been 2022. So it was in 2021. oh, wow. I'm like, is it 2021 or 2022? It must have been 2021 because we became profitable in 2022. So in 2020, at the end of 2020, October, I made a page that was app.thestorygraph.com/plus. And I said, and I went through and I looked at the features we had and I thought, how can we enhance these? And I was like, okay, similar books. We're going to give you personalized similar books. So you have a unique page just for you that takes into account your unique preferences, your unique themes, topics, and tropes that you've told us you've liked, and shows you the books similar to this one, but also highlighting the ones that have the things that you like. Okay, cool. And then it was like stats. Everyone loves the stats, but what if you could compare two of the stats pages side by side? So I was just taking the features we had and just like made up a list of features. And then I said, we're also going to have a public roadmap on which you can vote and post. You're going to get priority support. So we're going to like put your support. And I said, pre-order now, $30. After that, it's $50. Paid it up. And we got over like 3 months, we got 1,400 pre-orders. 1,400 people paid $30 for something that didn't exist.
Wow.
So then it got to the point where I said, okay, well, we have to build this thing now because I don't want to give all this money back. We have to build it.
Right.
And so I spent a month building it. I remember because we had January, which was a big January of 2021, we hit 100,000 users. And then I remember saying, I told these people early 2021, I don't want people starting to get mad and say like, when is this coming out? So I just changed it to say February 2021, just backed myself. And it came out. It's funny. I was up. That February was wild, but it came out. It was March 1st in the UK, but for most of America, it was February 28th or 9th. I can't remember.
There you go. It's February somewhere.
It was February somewhere. That was the title of that week's newsletter. The next week's newsletter. It was February somewhere. That was what it was called.
Love it. Love it.
That's awesome.
What percentage of your user base is on Plus?
Like a small percentage. I'm saying because we've just had a big spike and I haven't done the maths again, but normally it's less than 1%. It's like sometimes I think it's 0.01% or something.
Mm-hmm.
We have right now 10.5K plus users and 2.3 million, almost 2.4 million registered users. So it's like, what's that? Like 0.0.
It's small.
Yeah.
You mentioned businesses though, and the next best thing to a B2C would be a B2G, business to group, right? Like you've got book clubs are super popular, and a team of people paying X dollars a month is totally plausible because they're buying wine, they're hanging out, it's groups. Like, how does Plus factor into book clubs? Those are super popular. Like, I had to message my wife because my wife is a group club leader. She's very good at it, and she's got some serious like friend groups from book clubs. And so I said, "Hey, have you heard about this, babe?" And she's like, "No." So I asked her for some feedback. I could share that with you in this call, but I'm curious what you think about B2G, book to groups, or business to group kind of thing. I know you have a book club feature, but how fleshed out is it? Oh my gosh.
We don't have like the book club. Yeah, I'm triggered right now.
It's a fake feature. Is it a fake feature?
No, I'm triggered because book clubs were meant to be out by December 31st. Of 2023. The years were a mess. So they didn't come out. So I said they'll come out in the first week of January. We had a wild January, 2 weeks of downtime. We couldn't handle the demand. There's a whole thing there. We had to re-architect a bunch of things, and we're still, we still have some plans for re-architecting how our database works. I don't know if we'll have time to get into that in this conversation. But so I have only recently been able to pick up book clubs again. I think there was, in one of the ideas that I was throwing around, there was a plan that essentially I thought that Plus users would be able to host book clubs. And my thinking was that I didn't think you could have a model where every member would pay for a book club because people can run book clubs for free on several other platforms. But I thought, if we have it such that Plus members could host book clubs, that would be great. However, my customer research revealed to me a few things. And this is customer research of people who use Plus, customer research of people who run book clubs, all these things. And what I learned was Plus is not working. We have product market fit with the free product. We do not have product market fit at the moment with Plus. Why? Because today, 2 years later, the Plus plan is still that grab bag of features that I made up. And so what happens is most people who take out the Plus plan, it's because they want to just support an independent alternative to Goodreads. And they probably have one of the 8 features that they use. And most of them gravitate towards the stats features. And so I did this whole customer research and I said, we need to completely change how the Plus plan looks. So I'm currently I say currently, it's been on pause for a while, but I should be picking it up in February. I'm currently in the process of completely changing the Plus plan to be an advanced stats plan. So all it's going to have is going to be just all the extra charts. You're going to be able to create your own charts because I've discovered through my research that the power users are the ones that care about the stats. They have their own Excel spreadsheets. Separate to that, I've been doing customer research around with book club people, but also just thinking about the vision for the product and what works well. And it's far better because there are a bunch of features within the Plus plan right now around buddy read book suggestions where you can put in the usernames of people that you want to read a book with. And we have a machine learning thing that will tell you the best books to read for this group, which will obviously be part of that will be included in our book club feature. Those features, in terms of network effects, it's better that those are free. And that more people can use them and come on board. And then maybe the power users in the group or the ones that care about stats might upgrade their accounts to Plus. But now the group and no one stopped from joining. Because the other thing I realized is that with that Plus plan, someone might be into stats. Someone else is into running a book club. Someone else is into, running a buddy read or whatever it is. And so I definitely need to separate out the identity of the Plus user is going to be the advanced stats power user. And then book clubs, buddy reads, read alongs, all our social features, you can opt in. It's all free. If you're a Plus user, you will get advanced extra stats insights into any of the things you do. That's going to be the core of Plus, but it will be free to run your groups. And I had to change the estimate to end of January, but it's 31st of January. There's a reason I chose to do this interview on the 31st of January in my evening. I thought by this point I'd have everything done that I wanted to get done. It's still not done. So you need to tell your wife to check it out again when book clubs are out.
Yeah. I'm sure she will. The one thing she did say though was that, in quotes, Goodreads, and this, my wife is a designer, an interface designer even. She says, in quotes, Goodreads has a terrible UI. It's clunky and not very intuitive. She says, we like to make a group in Goodreads and then suggest books to each other. I like AI, but still like people too. And so I know that a lot of things that she does is around this group of folks she's with, and they're always talking about what book's coming next, which is core to the help you give to an individual. But then, you kind of move that to a group. I mean, I'm not designing your business, but I just think there's maybe some fruit there because the groups tend to be more invested, right? An individual will just be not so much not invested, but groups tend to invest further emotionally into a product and be daily active users, or at least monthly active if they're a monthly book club, And she's been doing this for multiple years. These friendships are deep and they are super meaningful to her. And being a leader of this group is super important to her because it's her friends. It's not just people, it's her girlfriends. And so I just wonder if that's how much deeper you can go there. If there's that's where the crux of the business is.
I don't know in terms of, something I didn't mention is I asked when I did my custom interviews with the book club hosts, I asked money questions to say what do you spend money on? Are there any membership fees? Do you pay for the tools you currently use? And it's basically, there's nothing there, right? So that's not to say that there won't be something in the future, but I think that I'm trying to focus on kind of what you said, which is giving people a digital space to have to host their book club, which is an all-in-one solution. So for example, I'm so excited when I did my research round, normally I mentioned how I speak to very specific groups of people. But this time on Instagram and Twitter, I asked for anyone who runs a book club. And I asked them to tell me, is it remote or in person? How regularly do you meet? Is there a theme or not? And then I said to Abby, can you go through and choose 10 people who are as different as possible? So I want small, remote, large in person. And I wanted to start there because I said to myself, it might not be possible, but if I can, based on these interviews of interviewing wildly disparate styles of book club groups, if I can build a feature that helps all of these, then that would be awesome. And so I have developed a feature set that will cater to whether it's an in-person, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's virtual, in that you're going to basically be able to, invite people. You're going to be able to have StoryGraph help suggest books for the poll to have the community vote of what shall we read next, but also the host can just choose if that's how they currently do it. You're going to be able to have an agenda where you can add photos from the meeting. You're going to be able to add links and, everyone's rating will show up and all that kind of stuff. Then that will be feed into having this journal, this digital journal that have the history of all your meetings, what was said, the photos, whatever. So it's like a digital journal. You'll also have a leaderboard for your club where it's these are the top 10 books that we've ever read. So even if someone joins, they can go back and say, oh, this is what this club likes. Let me go and read these, in the times when I'm not reading the book club picks, or just so that you have that history as well. And we want to look into actually being able to host the meetings on the app for the digital ones as well. So basically just having this one space. So we are really looking at trying to create a space where people feel finally my book club has a home on StoryGraph.
Mm-hmm. You said you have 2 million users?
Registered users.
What's the activity of those 2.4? Is half of them pretty active? A quarter of them pretty active?
I need to review it because around this time, it's really hard because we have this spike and it kind of needs to settle down again to see where we even out. But historically, we tend to fluctuate between 25% to a third, typically are active. And that's we look at monthly active users because most people read a book on average a month. And we look at checking in their dashboard, adding or remove, doing something to a book in a library. I have a list of key actions, which counts to that classifies you as active. And so we typically have about a quarter to a third active users.
Well, as I was sharing with you about this whole business to group idea, I was bite my tongue because I'm gosh, there's 2.4 million people that have a problem that have already given you their opt-in. Why just focus on the groups in terms of discovering your value to that many? Because you obviously have a value to individuals. I mean, with that many users, what problem do they all have?
Right.
Versus just the groups who decide to meet together and share their fascination with their books. A lot of people are just introverts and don't, share, aside from, the folks that are blogging about it or bookstagrammers, etc. They're the ones that are sort of being extroverts with their process and what they read. You probably have a lot of people who's just I just want to organize how I read better and have my own personal journey, not my collective journey. So I was kind of biting my tongue on suggesting that you should dig into groups when it could be more just you've got 2.4 million. What do they all have in common in terms of a problem that they would pay to solve?
And there's two on this. One point is to say, we haven't yet done this transition that I believe will accelerate the adoption of Plus. So I feel the reason why the adoption of Plus, right now, what you see people saying is, I don't even need to get Plus because the free product does everything I want. And it's this grab bag of features that adds little enhancements to a whole range of features, of which most people are not interested in all of them. And so what I'm curious to see is when we transition it to, you can literally create your own charts. You can create your own, let's see what adoption looks like then. But we also have another revenue stream, which is giveaways. So publishers and authors pay to list competitions for their books on the app. And we've got 2 tiers there. We've got a standard tier and a premium tier. And with the premium tier, your book is on the homepage. And it's there's a link everywhere your book shows up. There's a clear gold link of enter giveaway and things like that. There's extra features. You get a custom notification so you can, because you would have tens of thousands of entries. So when the giveaway ends, your personalized message gets sent to all of those entries. And essentially, this is a win-win-win because it's a win for the publishers and authors because they essentially have a way to advertise their books to our community, millions of users. It's a win for the users because to them, it's not really ads. It's a chance to win free books. And then it's a win for us because it's another revenue stream. And right now we're getting more revenue from Plus, but I do see a world where, depending on how it goes, the giveaways overtakes that. We'll have to see. It's hard to tell right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have that other revenue stream, which is our kind of B2B kind of.
Do you know how many users Goodreads has?
It's rumored around 80 to 90 million, I believe.
So I was doing the math. 10.5 on 2.4 million is 0.4%. What do you know what typical is on freemium? I would expect 1% in terms of upgraders.
It is about 2% or something. Oh, in terms of like converting?
Yeah, like a typical convert. Like I feel like 0.4% is low.
Yeah, it is low. I think it's like you're looking at 2 to 5% or something like that. I think that's the standard rate.
Yeah. I'm just over here thinking, what's the best use of your time? Cranking that percent up or just trying to get to 80, 90 million?
I see.
Because a small conversion rate on 80, 90 million is still a lot of money, or converting that rate. Obviously, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. But if you're a solo dev, you kind of can't, right? You're working on one feature or the other.
Yeah. And, you know, our intention is to keep the team small because it has a lot of benefits. Because the other thing is what 80 to 90 million users look like in terms of customer support, in terms of, you know what I mean?
Right. Cost, operational.
Mm-hmm. So there's that to keep in mind. I would hope that, you know, part of the reason why we can if we could grow to 80 to 90 million is because a lot of the UX pain points have been sorted out. Everything's super intuitive. You know, we've got a very helpful help base or whatever for the, you know, things like that. So it's hard to tell.
Yeah. So how do you pick on what to work on then? How do you choose?
What I'm currently working on is getting that percentage up. That's what I'm currently working on, right?
Well, how did you decide that then? Like what versus the other stuff?
Honestly, before we became profitable, this is actually what happened. It was more about me and being like, I don't have a salary and I'm on my last year of runway, right? So it got to the point where I'm like, for StoryGraph, for us to not get funding and for it to stay independent, I need to start getting a decent salary from StoryGraph. Rob needs to start getting a decent salary from StoryGraph. Well, I've always been paying Abby a decent salary from day one. And we were like, what can we do? So this is pre-giveaways. Plus was there, but it was kind of just, you know, it was a 0.01% at one point. And so I was like, could we do ads in a smart way? Because of all the page views we have. And the thing is, even when we thought we were being smart about it, we always just came out at, even if we weren't sending any user data to publishers, like if it was just a behind the scenes matching process that the publishers had their inputs and then we matched behind the scenes to make sure that users were seeing relevant ads. We just thought even just the thought of users thinking we'd given their data to publishers just didn't sit right with us. So there was this one like series of formative conversations with Rob and with Saron, my friend Saron, his wife, where it was like, okay, that's where I kind of thought, ooh, giveaways. That's how we get another revenue stream. And then I said, we don't have product market fit with Plus. How do we get product market fit with Plus so that that percentage goes up? That was kind of the journey to just choosing to do that.
Yeah, makes sense.
It came from a personal, like, well, my runway runs out in 2 years. So something needs to change.
Yeah.
Right. I like the giveaways idea. I think it can be more of a win-win-win because you have, you know, there's something there for the user, not just, hey, look at this book that even if we vetted the book.
Yes.
And it's like, well, we vetted the book, the person's paying to promote it, but, you know, here's a chance at a free copy. It's like, everybody likes free stuff. So
yeah,
that's a good idea. That's a good way of doing it so that it's not a win-win-lose for the end user, which ultimately, you know, drives down enjoyment and satisfaction, right? And drives people away if it becomes egregious. Less so, I think, if it's a really good fit. I mean, we are advertising-based company here at Changelog. We are sponsored. We also have a membership, so you can opt out of that. I don't know, Adam, 1%? What do you think is our percentage? 0.001?
Pretty small.
We don't know what it is. It's pretty small.
Yeah. But that's not what we're optimizing for either, at least now.
No, it's not. But the point I was getting to was that we are very intentional with the sponsors that we work with and the way we produce the ads and all this kind of stuff, so that we think it's a decent trade-off for keeping the podcast free for everybody. And our listeners, even sometimes ones that sign up for Plus Plus, are like, can I sign up for your, sorry, it's better than yours, Nadia. Yours is Plus, ours is Plus Plus, so it's slightly better.
Oh, it was actually Plus Plus.
Changelog Plus Plus, because we're nerds. And so we like to increment things.
I love it. Plus Plus. Love it. Yeah.
Some people sign up and say, hey, can I keep the ads in there? Because they're valuable to me. I enjoy it because we're exposing them to new things. And so if done right, I think you probably could crack that nut. But if you can figure out even more interesting ways, like giveaways of doing the same thing, then more power to you.
When we were sketching out what introducing ads to the platform would look like, I said to Rob, what we should do is have it such that if you pay for Plus, you can turn off the ads. But I want it such that most Plus people do not turn off the ads because they're that good. That was like the goal. That was literally what I said.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how we think.
That's great.
Yes.
But then, of course, we do have people that say, I signed up because I don't want the ads anymore. So there you go. I mean, it's not like everybody, but they're good enough that some people find value in them. And so we treat them like content as much as we can, which is it's a lot of hard work. So I'm sure giveaways probably some hard work as well at this point.
Yeah. It's a whole other product that I'm building, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a whole other platform because there's a whole back-end dashboard to that. And it's still in beta because there's still some manual parts of the process. And I really hope that we can make it live today. Just on the Plus thing, a couple of points that I want to mention that I think are cool, but they could also factor into lower numbers in that actually not really. Anyway, the point that I want to make is we don't take any payment details when you sign up for the trial. And also the trial is also 30 days. And so on one hand, I think the trial is quite long and that it's very easy in 30 days for someone to like not feel a pressure to use it. Then they kind of don't use it. And then when it comes to try and sign up, they're like, I didn't really use it. I guess I don't need it. And so they don't. Whereas maybe if it was shorter, they might immediately try and explore all the features and then sign up. But the cool part of all of this is knowing that when we look at our subscriber number, when I look at that 10,570, whatever it is, knowing that every single one of those people actively, their free trial expired and they actively came back on and said, yes, no, I want this. And they put in their card details. That's really cool. No one's a mistake there because it's just not possible.
Right. You probably have a lower churn that way because the people are very intentional about signing up. Yeah.
How many conversations have you had with those 10,500 folks to make Plus better, to give them more value?
Dozens, I would guess. So, no, dozens. It would be more than, probably dozens up to 100 because I've done a bunch of like over the years, some are conversations. So I've had research rounds where, there was one where I figured out, oh, no one really cares about Plus. They're just paying to support, what do people have in common? The power users. Oh, they love stats, like things like that, which helped me get to the advanced stat transition. But there's also been surveys and stuff over the years too, not always direct conversations. Sometimes I'll send out a survey of checking in, maybe testing the waters for a particular feature I'm thinking about, things like that. So I've spoken every single Plus user, well, not the 2,000 who joined in the last month. That was great. But no, the 8,000, whatever, they've heard from me in some shape or form, whether it's just a form or a survey saying, hey, we're thinking of doing this. Like, how do you use this currently?
Mm-hmm. What does success look like for this for you? Like, do you have some sort of thing jotted down where you're like, if this gets to some point, because you want to stay small. So it doesn't sound like, total world domination is what you're after necessarily. Or maybe you are, but just with a small team.
Maybe.
I'll leave it. No. So it is definitely not world domination, but I think I would love for us to be almost the default place that people, when they're thinking about book recommendations or finding a book, we're like the default place to go. Like people are just like, oh, check it on StoryGraph or go to StoryGraph. One other measure is whenever we have a spike, like a big spike, we end up getting to like the highest we've ever, number 2. So we've been number 1 in the App Store once, but we've hovered between 2 and 5, right? In the books category. And I think Goodreads is basically entrenched at number 1, pretty much, apart from that one time where we were briefly above them. That was when we basically launched the apps. Then this TikTok went viral. So I would love, basically, I'm imagining us being up there, like entrenched, like one and two, just being there and being known as the kind of default main place. Personally, feeling like I do see StoryGraph as my life's work, assuming things kind of continue. I would just keep doing this as long as it stays fun. And I feel like that is a possibility that I keep doing this, in which case it would need to get to the point where I feel like I can get a salary that would support whatever like life choices I want to make, whether that's relocating, whether that's having a wedding, like whatever it might be. Because right now I don't feel like that. Like I've got a decent salary now and Rob has too, but it's not, for me, it's not enabling my savings. The savings that I drew down over the last 5 years, they're not growing back up right now.
Right.
So it's things like that where it's like, there's a personal lifestyle where it's like, okay, StoryGraph is supporting me and my lifestyle and any future changes that might come to that lifestyle. And also we are just known as like the de facto default. You want books? StoryGraph.
I have an idea for you.
Oh, yes, please.
I don't even know if it's good. Just thinking out loud here. I love problems.
I could tell you've been stewing away. Like, even with the groups things, I could just see in your face. You're like,
Well, because there's no right way to success. Like, even as Jared asked that question, you really have a, not struggle to describe it, but it just seems like just don't die is your success. Like, just don't die. And if you can really succeed well, that's obviously a plus. No pun intended.
yeah.
But I wonder if you want to be the default for a good book recommendation, then don't put it behind a sign up, right? Give somebody some place to go, ask them 3 questions, give them a result, and they're going to love you immediately, right? I don't know how your recommendation works, so take this with a grain of salt. But what if that recommendation was so compelling that they were like, I have to sign up afterwards? Or maybe you really don't struggle with signups, but if you want it to be the default, find a way to give them a result that's worth their attention without any friction in the process, right? The sign up process is always pushy because you're like, what am I signing up for? And then you get a form to fill out to give somebody some information. And maybe the thing that came from like the TikTok video or the YouTube video, or maybe that was the compelling artifact that doesn't make that part of struggle for you. And I don't know. But if you want to be the default, you have to kind of give that thing away ad nauseum for free. Like, just give it away for free. And everybody's like, man, this is the place to go. And they have no problem with giving you more keys to their kingdom.
So here's the thing. So pre this current spike, right? We had about 2 million registered users, but we were getting 4 million unique visitors every month. So there's like double are just someone's linked them. It could be a giveaway page, which you can view all the giveaway pages without, signing up. We also have, you can view all the book pages too, like, sure. We also have a browse all books page, which has a filter menu. It's not like the recommendation engine where you actually put in your preferences, but you can say, oh, I want something funny, fast paced, whatever. And you can order by last updated or page size or whatever it is. Book size. But there is a feature that we released recently that we have been talking about and saying, like, can we make this free? As in such that you don't need to sign up, which is that we currently have something called a StoryGraph preview or personalized preview. And essentially it's an AI generated summary of, readers the book would be good for. And also if you have the personalized version, which is currently plus, because originally we thought it was going to be too costly to offer it to everybody. The personalized version tells you if we think the book is going to be good for you. And it's a completely in-house solution. And there was a world where we're excited for it to be free to everyone, because then it's like, wow, even if your main tool is Goodreads, if you're in a bookstore, you want to be looking at it on StoryGraph, because we're the only place that are going to tell you, oh, given your interest in so-and-so themes, blah, 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 you might like this book. But what we also do is if you've specified any type of thing you don't like reading about, like if you don't like reading sad books, or if there are certain triggers and things you don't want to read about, we'll alert you too. Say, be warned, deals with themes of blah, blah, so be careful, proceed with caution, right? So this is this new feature which we're hoping to make free for everyone, but we have discussed, is it possible to just have this be on the pages? And we need to talk about it some more because there's something about whether it's to do with AI opt-out or whatever. We need to we need to just look into the implications cost-wise, resource-wise, because we're getting 4 million users a month and just check. Yeah, just like review if that is actually a possibility. But that would get at what you're talking about, which is giving people a result without needing them to sign up.
Mm-hmm. So I don't have the answers, right? Obviously, because I'm not deep in your team. I don't know what's required to give this thing away, but I just wonder if that could be compelling. Because if anyone could go to a non-friction page and get some value, then they're willing to give you more of their attention and time. It's just my rough thought on that. And that could be plausible. It could not be plausible for you to accomplish. But if you want to be the default, you kind of have to give somebody a taste of what the goodness is, right? As some sort of tantalizer to get in. Could be a landing page. It could be an A/B test. It doesn't even have to be to everybody. It could be, let's test this out on an ad campaign that we do, or some way we drive and funnel folks to this one page that tests out this theory in a 20,000 person spectrum versus a 200,000 spectrum, because you're getting 4 million visits a month or whatever the number is, where you really can't spend the money on that and say, okay, wow, what was the conversion on 25,000 folks? Does it make sense to scale that? Does that really bring us in high quality people who really love to read and really can find value, not only in our platform and the recommendations, but then are a high candidate for whatever Plus evolves into?
Yeah.
That's how I think of it.
Definitely something to think about.
If you're listening, you may remember the early days of the internet where open networks like HTTP and SMTP led to an explosion of websites and online communities. Building a fan site and connecting over shared passions led so many of us to careers in software. Back then, it seemed like anything was possible because the internet of the 90s was built to democratize information, not consolidate it with a handful of big tech companies. Read, Write, Own, Building the Next Era of the Internet is a new book from startup investor Chris Dixon that explores how network architecture plays out in our online lives and the decisions that took us from open networks governed by communities of developers to massive social networks run by internet giants. Read, Write, Own is a playbook for reclaiming control and for reimagining applications so users can own, co-create, and even profit from the platforms they use every day. From AI that compensates creators to protocols that reward open source contributions, this is our chance to build the internet we want, not the one we inherited. Order your copy of Read, Write, Own today or go to readwriteown.com to learn more.
Here's something to think about, Nadia.
Yes, more. Let's go.
Have you entertained or would you entertain an acquisition?
No. As in, no, the answer right now is no.
Like, no, you haven't, and no, you wouldn't.
The thing is, I'm just in general with life, I'm wary of saying never say never, because I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years. Am I still going to be having fun? I feel like I'm pretty good at looking after myself. Like, everyone's always worried about my well-being. And I'm like, I'm so far away from burnout. Like, I really look after myself. So the answer right now is like, no, definitely not. We couldn't. But I'm not going to say never because life is long and hopefully, touch wood. And so, yeah, but the answer right now is no. And that is not in my plans and it's not in my intention. My plan is to continue running and owning StoryGraph forever. But
let's assume success then. Let's go down the road 5 years, maybe 10, but let's at least go down the road 5 and say that StoryGraph has displaced Goodreads in the zeitgeist of human knowledge, and you're number one on app downloads, and you have more users than you know what to do with, and everybody loves the product, and here comes Amazon a knocking.
No, Amazon's no.
No, let's not make it Amazon. That's too easy.
Yeah, Amazon's just no. Like, that would almost be like betraying our users. Adam has an opinion though. Like my dad. My dad has an opinion on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I bet.
All right. Amazon doesn't come knocking, but somebody else does who has goodwill in heart. Then you're thinking about it. Then you may be like, well, sell.
If it's going well and we're running it, then no reason to sell.
All right. I like it.
Yeah.
I think right now I would say that the only
VC?
No, because it's again, if we're profitable now, so if we say, why go on that VC train? I feel like it will only bring bad things. The focus, because once you bring VC on, it's almost what's the word? Like a race to acquisition or IPO, and I would hate to feel pressured to do either of those things.
Yeah, because you usually get paid at an exit.
See?
Yeah, unless that's a venture capitalist that comes in at a profit share versus a exit share. That's a different venture capitalist. There's lots of people who would invest based upon their return over multiples based upon trends. That's plausible.
Yeah. But then, so you're talking about an investor coming along. What would be
aligned? Yeah, that kind of investor would have to be not only money, but smart money, like connected, networked. It would have to add value to the giveaways. You know, can you help me connect with better publishers, have deeper relationships with publishers, have longer contracts, more reliable revenue, etc.
Yeah.
Like that's how I would view that kind of investment.
Or like who's the most famous, like who's the Oprah of Bookstagram, you know?
Ooh, dang, yeah.
I know, but the way we're growing, it's like...
What if Oprah comes along?
Truth.
You know, because
like
she's got a book club that's pretty good.
I always talk about Oprah to Roll. I'm like, one day Oprah will notice us.
Do you? Okay, so I'm hitting on something here. Well, because I just think of Oprah's book club. I was kind of thinking of like Nadia's book club. Like, what if you did that? Because like you could grow that audience and maybe have your thing be, you know, the new Oprah's book club eventually.
It'd be fun.
But if Oprah did come by and was like interested, like that seems like, I don't know about spiritually aligned, but at least in terms of product and the things she's good at, she obviously has the money. Like maybe that would be she could value add is just my only point. I don't know where I'm going with this, but
she can just interview somebody or mention it, and that's great.
She literally just mentioned it.
Let's put it out there, Oprah. If you're out there and somebody listened to this in your network, get in touch.
If you're Oprah's software developer, IT person, and you listen to this,
that's right, Jared. Good job. Yeah. If you're handling Oprah's DNS,
yes,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Next time she asks for a book link, send the StoryGraph one.
That's right. I like that idea. I mean, I think I would, if I were you, that's how I would align it, because I would not sell out to the other Goliath, like an Amazon, even an Amazon competitor. I would, because like you said, you're profitable, and for now you're enjoying it, right? Like you said, you're not sure in 5 years or 10 years how you'll feel, because none of us do, but you assume you will.
Yes.
And so, and it's to stay on the, the gymnasts who are on the walking, like a plank kind of thing, whatever that is, to stay on the bar. Don't fall off. You know, don't look down.
The balancing beam? Are you talking about the balancing beam?
You make it sound like it was stressful and
like it's tenuous.
Yeah.
Like you could fall off and die.
Exactly.
Well, it's just a few feet. You know, just a few feet.
Yeah.
It's not like there's no sharks down there. And
it's more a walk in the park, no?
It doesn't feel like that. It feels like a walk in the park for you?
I want to get, well, not right now, but I see the future of it feeling like a walk in the park. Well,
right.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. There's this idea that Jared just mentioned that I think has legs. What if there's a book club for everybody?
What do you mean?
That's just there to join, right? Groups to find, in a way.
Oh, like pre-made book clubs.
Well, the Nadia book club is there that you like, hey, everyone's welcome here. And then it's like the bees and honey kind of thing. Like, you know, it's sweet, so you come, and then wow, there's a recommendation engine here. Right? You want to be the default of that. So rather than say come get recommendations, it's more like come find your group. Maybe this is the group for you, but something where everybody's invited.
Yeah, pretty funny because we launched a read-alongs feature at the end of last year where you can read a book with up to 1,000 people. And it's basically for people who don't want to be in a regular book club, but they can opt in and you can choose a book. And I was running it from the StoryGraph account, but it was clear that Nadia was running it. And we had 1,000 people join and we all read Erin Morgenstern's The Night Circus, and it was awesome. And at the end, I made a forum that was like, share your feedback on this feature, given that it's new. And, you know, one person wrote something like, I feel like running one of these is not for me. It's more for influencers like Nadia. Like, and I just remember laughing, being like, I don't see myself as an influencer.
But you are.
I think you are.
Here's a different angle. I would be friends with somebody based upon particular books I know I've read that I've enjoyed. And if they've read and enjoyed these books, then I could be better friends with them. As a matter of fact, that happened this week. Like, I like Nick more because I know specific books he and I've read together, and we shared like similar likes and dislikes with the book. And so I feel like, man, if I was like Nick's neighbor, I'm talking about Nick Nisi from JS Party, by the way.
Okay.
If I was Nick's literal neighbor, I would like, not that I'm not his friend because we're far away, but I would be more willing to like hang out with Nick because I know he's read the Babaverse, Quintology book or whatever, like that series, or because he would take a recommendation, so like the find your group people or the find your friends in the world of the internet is similar likes, and that similar likes kind of comes from a book.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a whole new direction for you, Nadia. It's like Tinder for book lovers,
Oh, don't get me started on the Tinder for book lovers. As a single person who has been dating for years trying to find somebody, the number of times people have said like, oh, have you thought about a dating app spinoff? And it's like, I wish I had the bandwidth for a dating app spinoff, because it would be incredible to find a man who loves books and that we can bond over that. So this come up a few times over the years, this dating app spinoff.
This is why you take money in, you hire a dev, they're working on that, you keep working on Plus, and then
that's true.
Good things happen. It's called lack of focus is also what you call it.
And then it's that dev that ends up being my husband.
Oh my goodness.
Now we're on a Hallmark movie. Oh my gosh.
We're like matchmakers. Look what we're doing for her.
Nadia, are you a Hallmark fan by any chance? Are you a Hallmark movie junkie during the holidays?
No, but I know the reference.
Okay. You laughed really hard, so I was thinking maybe you were. And I was like, wow, not only...
Well, I kind of was part of one last year. I was part of one that was basically like a Hallmark movie, but it didn't end the way a Hallmark movie ends, so...
Oh.
I get sucked into it. There's a framework to every one of those movies. I get sucked into them. My wife watches them. Sometimes she has friends over and I'm watching them with her just because I'm in the room. Then I'm the guy who's like, don't do that. Oh my gosh. I'm the, I'm like in it. Somehow I get invested in this.
You're the husband at the back who's like, I'm not watching this. Oh, but you're watching this.
But I am watching it, yes. That's half the reason I'm like, don't turn it on, because if you turn it on, I will watch it and then I'll get invested and then I'll be one of the girls.
You'll have scooted your way in the front. You're crying, crocodile tears.
My tissues out and stuff like that.
Can you believe how he treated Sally? She did not deserve that.
The point is, though, is we all bond over stories, right? And I was just thinking, like, going back to the default, maybe the way to being the default isn't to put the default out front. So maybe my recommendation was incorrect. Maybe it's just helping people find the platform. And then, wow, there's this recommendation engine that should be the default for everybody. And I just want to tell everybody I know, or find more people that have read the same books I've read.
And this is why, by the way, I think it's very important that all the social reading features like buddy reads, like read-alongs and book clubs are free, because you get people who don't even intend to move or use a book tracking app, but their book club host says, we're trying this for this meeting, or we're doing this one thing. And then they try it and then they say, oh, what is this thing? That was awesome. Oh, I want to do this again. Oh, it's just easier if I have all my stuff on here. And we have seen that journey a little bit, but there's definitely more that we can do on that space.
Mm-hmm. Is there any more technical stories you can share with us? Like your queues all jacked up? How's your servers doing? What are you doing for observability? Do you do observability? Like, what's your SRE stack? How do you deploy?
We're off Heroku now. That's a big story. We migrated. Rob manages all of our infrastructure. So we were on Heroku. We were on the database plan that was costing us like $8,000 to $9,000 a month on top of all the other costs.
Oh my god!
And at this point, Plus is like, we have a few thousand users. It's not enough. And so we, Rob, who had 15 years in infrastructure experience, said, hey, Nadia, I think we should move off Heroku. Me, who is a boot camp graduate, all I know is Heroku. What do you mean we're moving off Heroku? No. And he did all the research. He laid everything out for me. He answered all of my questions. It was a month-long process of, this is the way to go. And so eventually we did this big migration at the beginning of 2022, January 2022. It was like months and months of research, lead up, planning, we told everyone we're going to have this is one of those, we're going to have scheduled downtime from this time to this time. We were like going to be down for 5 hours, moving everything over. So we did everything. We followed our steps. We turned the app back on. Everything's working. And then the emails start coming in to support account deleted. My account's deleted. We were like, oh, my heart sunk. Like, it was awful. Eventually, we realized that what had happened was in the process of the upgrade, everybody had been signed out and some people had not had to sign in for like 3 years. So lots of people had like 2 accounts or something. Some people had 2 accounts, or they just couldn't remember their login details, or they didn't realize they weren't signed in. Basically, we were able to match every single person back to an account eventually. But it was that initial minute of when we turned it on, and then the emails started coming in, being like, well, my account's deleted now. That was scary. We had backups, but you don't want to be dealing with that.
You're like, I trusted you, Rob. No.
Yeah. So that was that. That's one story. There was, we had so many issues with search. And I started the app with PG search, and it was just searching for a book took like 10 seconds. It was awful. And, I would tweet out saying, what can I do? A lot of people eventually got to the point where I was like, I feel we need something like Elasticsearch. Even just working out with Elasticsearch, that eventually had its own performance issues. And I realized, I need to shard now. Like, I just learn things as and when we have problems. And it's like, now I need to shard. I need to index it this way. Like, I'm just learning on the job. One day, our Elasticsearch, the server running our Elasticsearch just died or something. It was a managed, we were still in Heroku at this point. And we were using like the Elastic plugin or plan, and it just suddenly search wasn't working. And it's very key for search to work. Like, no search nowhere was working. You couldn't search for books. And we were like, what's going on? We couldn't see anything. We emailed the support, and we were paying. We were on there like what's the word for the opposite of penultimate, i.e. the second from the highest?
I think it's just called second.
Yeah. I love penultimate is one of my favorite words to use. I do
like that word, yeah.
So whenever I say it in conversation, everybody always says, my friends, they'll say, oh, penultimate. And I'm like, but you knew exactly what I meant. And it's like, yeah.
I feel like everybody knows it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone calls it out as like a fancy word, but you know what I mean. So right. I just was hoping that there was another word. But actually,
might be.
Second highest plan.
Yeah, exactly. Second.
And the support was just like, oh, yeah, it looks like that server just failed. Like, we can spin it up for you again, but it's going to take like X hours. And we were like, right, we're getting off of Elastic. We're going on to Bonsai. That was a wild day because it was 8 hours of like, well, not quite 8 hours because we were slowly indexing the millions of records again. But it was like, that was one thing. I guess one of our biggest kind of tech learnings was when we had the first initial spike, the response time graph at Heroku,
mm-hmm.
We'd be like, okay. And then bam, it would like spike up. And we tried so many things. We re-architected bits of code. We even at one point, my friend Andy Quall, he texted and said, you're very write heavy. Like, which database plan are you on? And at this time, I was on the $50 database plan. And Andy said, well, that's never going to work. Like, you need to upgrade. Like, this is actually a case of throw more money at it. We upgraded to the $200 database. And, that felt at the time, oh my gosh, $200 a month on the database. That felt very wild. I mean, especially because at this time, it's money from my pocket and eventually Rob's as well.
Yeah.
It got to the point where even when we upgraded the database, it worked fine for a time. And then bang, we had the response time issues. We were looking at the logs. We were trying to go through everything. And that's when we learned about IOPS and burstability. Like, we didn't know about any of this stuff. So we learned, now we see what's going on. Like, our write IOPS are like over what the database can handle. So we now know we actually need to upgrade to this plan, whatever that plan was. Also, the reason why it works for a time and then fails is burstability. It's basically giving you can go this amount of time going over your IOPS rate, and then we're going to say no. So like that was another, so many like learnings over the years of like technical, like I said, sharding with Elasticsearch, IOPS on the database, like even just setting up Elasticsearch and optimizing that. And yeah, it's been a real amazing technical journey for me. When I was at Pivotal, I always had my pair. And so there was always someone, and given I came straight from a boot camp, there was always somebody who knew more than me sitting right next to me. Or if they didn't know more than me, they would, kind of have a sense of what to look for if we were stuck. And a lot of this is just like figuring out while you're putting out the fire. So yeah, there could be a whole other episode on like technical fires and learnings. And
well, we might have to have you come back at some point and tell us all these stories, because we didn't dive into the technical very much at all. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're on the verge of something that I'm scared of, but I'm less scared of now. We're going to go for a distributed database because we had all these issues at the beginning of this year, and we thought having a replica would be the solution. But that, given like the write heavy nature of the database, because essentially when we have a spike, it's also a spike in Goodreads imports. So when we have 10,000 users on the app, there are about 8,000 people that want to import their Goodreads. And we need to do that relatively quickly while they're excited, while they're interested.
How long does a standard Goodreads import take? Are we talking seconds, minutes?
Minutes. But we had people waiting for weeks this January.
Sure. Well, because you had a backup. Yeah.
Yeah, we had another 20,000. I said to Rob, wow, haven't seen these queue numbers since June of 2020.
And are there API limits slowing you down there as well? Like, can you hit Goodreads just as fast as you can, or do they limit you?
We don't touch Goodreads at all. We don't touch Goodreads at all. It's all in-house stuff.
How do you do your imports then?
Now we're going to secret sauce.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, but we don't. We don't
she
at
puts
all.
her mask on. You can't see me.
Are you scraping?
Do you know that? I'll show you. Not touching Goodreads at all. No scraping at all.
Okay. I want to know how you're doing it. Would you reveal it for our Changelog Plus listeners' ears only?
No, we don't. Not telling anyone.
You're not telling anybody.
We've got a lot of secret sauce stuff. Mm-mm.
Okay. All right.
It's Mechanical Turk behind the scenes making a phone call to Goodreads support, acting as the user.
Surprise, it's Adam.
I've been making the phone calls. Hey, I need my import list. Can you help me with that, please? And they got emailed and I upload it.
My name is Sally. Yeah. And I would like to export.
I can talk about a decision I made early on, actually, which was that I remember when I started, I never used Goodreads API because I always said to myself, if this thing gets big, they could just take away API access and then no one can import.
Yeah.
So from day one, I said, export your data from Goodreads. Here's steps. Give me the CSV. We'll sort it out. And I remember at the beginning, people would complain, like say, this is very clunky. Other apps do it this way. Da, 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 da. And what happened 2 years ago, or a year ago? Goodreads said, we're shutting down our API now.
Well, that was smart. So that is how you do it to this day, is CSV import.
Oh, yeah, we do. It is a CSV that we're given. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. And then you hold on to it for a few weeks, and then eventually you do something with it.
I'm just laughing at you.
That was a burn, Jared.
It was just funny. I'm just messing with you. I would love to have your problems. I mean, you got serious problems, like technical problems. Let's not discount them. Those are the fun ones. Like it's baptism by fire because you're having success and you're having to learn and adjust and like scramble. And a lot of us, we just put our stuff out in the world and nobody ever uses it. And so we're just like, we're just
H-topping, looking at our CPU doing nothing. We're like, come on now.
That's why I said an enviable scenario, even though at first you didn't really necessarily want it because you were not aligned, you thought, with your original goals. But I mean, you're having fun, right? Seems like you're having fun.
Oh, overall, I'm having the best time. Like, I love my life. How amazing is this that I had this idea, I had this little dream. Do you remember when I said it would be quite a stretch to say that I never thought about a Goodreads alternative? In those first early months, I remember thinking, okay, I'm not building a Goodreads alternative, but imagine if you did build an alternative. That would be great. But we're not building
No,
it.
we're not.
We're not.
Right.
I have a little bit something that would be really cool. So the fact that we are now like the main alternative to Goodreads, the team is so small, especially me being like a bootcamp grad, right? That's something else that I always like to stress actually, because I'm a bootcamp grad. I started coding when I was just graduated of uni. So I would 21, 22. Actually, that's wild because I'm 32 now. So that's like a decade.
Yeah, you're a senior dev.
Yeah, that's wild. So, oh my gosh, yeah, 2013. I've passed my 10 years of actually learning to code. That's wild. Completely escaped me.
You've been too busy.
I've been too busy. I didn't even realize I passed my 10 years of being a dev. Anyway.
Yeah, you're a senior dev for sure.
Wow. So, but I always like to stress that I'm a bootcamp grad. My degree was in philosophy, politics, and economics. I was going into banking. Like, I haven't been coding since I was young. So my point is, like, anybody can do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can, if you want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
It might take you a long time, but you can do it. It is possible. And you don't have to, you could be listening to this and not even know how to code yet and still end up building something in some years that.
I think you represent more than just you can do it as a boot camp graduate. I think you represent that you can accomplish an idea and speak to real people and solve real problems and scale and be profitable, not just boot camp graduate. I think you represent way more than that.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think I don't want that piece to be missed. Like, it's not like I did computer science. It's not like I always like, I hear that too. There is a lot more that I represent.
I wanted to add some major credits there that you did not, even though.
Thank you.
I think you're amazing. I think what you've done is awesome. I think
Thank
you're
you.
solving cool, like Jared said, you're solving cool problems. I said it while we were all talking, but I said some of us just H-top looking at our CPU doing nothing, and we're just like inventing problems so that we can make it spike temporarily. You know, please let me break it so I can fix it, kind of thing. And you actually have, you know, code in the wild. You're solving problems, and you're happy doing it, and you're learning along the way. Like, you're in the journey. That's the fun part. Don't forget.
Yes, thank you.
One day you'll look back and be like, those were the days. What does your wife say, Jared? These are the days?
These are the days. That's right.
These are the days. I'm a big fan of that. These are the days.
Yeah.
And this is why I always make sure I'm enjoying myself both within work and outside of work at the same time. So lots of people say to me, oh, you must be doing all-nighters all the time. You must be this. And I'm always like, actually, no, I'm pretty strict with my sleep. And I do, one of my main hobby apart from reading is dance. I'm in dance class a few times a week, having lunch with friends. I'm out. Sometimes I think, am I working enough? Because I'm enjoying myself, you know? One thing I do want to say is in those earliest days when I was doing that customer research, I told myself to be prepared to walk away. So I told myself, if this customer these interviews don't reveal that there is something here, Goodreads exists, other apps exist, don't waste your time, be prepared to walk away. And I think that's very important. I just thought of it now when you were talking about inventing problems. I said to myself, I don't want to invent a problem where one doesn't exist, because then I end up eating up years of my runway and having nothing to show for it at the end, beyond an app that nobody uses.
Yeah.
Well, if you're the most notable Goodreads alternative, I think that you are definitely not inventing the problem.
No.
Well, actually,
Right?
going back to the beginning of the conversation, I think that pattern that I put out at the beginning, I think is actually a very good way of not inventing problems. Is like seeing something that was wildly successful / loved, reached a point where it did sell. Now it's languished in the hands of a giant, and people don't like it anymore. I mean, there's more things than just Goodreads that are like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty rife place for innovation. I think I think that's a way of not doing something. You know that people love that thing one time. And so something like that fills similar needs in a unique way that's not languishing. That's a good way of not just inventing problems.
100%.
Yeah.
Cool. Nadia, this has been awesome. I would be there for your book club, even though I don't read very much. But I think you should definitely, I think Oprah needs to be disrupted at this point, right?
Should I run it as
She's done her
StoryGraph or should
thing.
I run it as Nadia? On StoryGraph. Which one should I do? Since you're giving me all the advice.
Do you want to be successful and famous or just successful? Because if you're just successful, do it as StoryGraph. Well, some people don't want the fame.
Yeah.
I like the idea of being known of like, oh, that's the founder of StoryGraph, but not in a way. I need to be able to like go on the tube and go on the bus and nobody talk to me.
All right, do it as StoryGraph then. Do it as StoryGraph. Because they'll be coming up to you, hey, what books are you reading? And you're like, oh no, I've created a monster.
I'll be like this with my book.
Yeah. Wearing a beard, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, just in disguise all the time. Like,
Right. So if you don't want that, then maybe just do it as StoryGraph.
because I have actually thought about running my own book club because running the read along was fun, but I might just do that, like keep running the read alongs on StoryGraph, and everyone just looks forward to like, wow, every other month StoryGraph does a read along. It's run by the founder, but you know what I mean? But I might just do that instead. And then I don't have, if I miss a month, or even though like I'm always like, once I start something, I'm like, it has to be every week, every other month.
But you could also eventually replace yourself with somebody who's good at it, and it could still be the StoryGraph read along, you know?
You saying I'm not good at it?
No, somebody else who is good at it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying someone who is actually good at it, not just de facto running it.
No, no. I'm saying by then you've built it into something. Yeah, somebody else. Well, I added that because, of course, as the person who created it, you might think, you know, I have a problem like this. Like nobody else can do it like I do it. But then there's other people like they can read and talk about a book too. But not like you can. I mean, it won't be the same.
Yeah, I love it. You're like, let me make it better. Like, not like you can. There's no one like you.
I'm digging out. I'm digging out.
You haven't seen me run one, so you don't know whether I'm good or not.
It's true.
One day.
Time will tell.
When you join the read along.
I'll have to be there for the first one. Yeah.
For sure. That's like the conference too. Then I mean, there's an opportunity there too where you can like collect people with not just a book club, but then now you go on the road and meet people that read the same book in gatherings, StoryGraph gatherings. You know what I mean? Like there's so much, because I mean, if you're optimizing for deep enjoyment and community, you kind of will get famous along the way naturally, just because as your friend group grows, so does your fame grow, right? But if that's something, I mean, that's an angle that Goodreads is definitely not doing, right? They're not meeting people, right? They're just like providing software.
Honestly, that's what they are doing. Since we started it, we've only seen them announce that they're taking away features. And there are some things that I do wonder why they haven't like added them, because they, you know, people want them. And I guess the only thing I can think is like the tech debt is that bad that it's really hard to add new features at this point.
Possibly.
It's, I mean, it could be just a symptom too that somebody really is in charge. There's like no one's really in charge of the product. And so it's just like, just keep it alive and maybe kill some things along the way and cut some costs.
Yeah, the original founder of Goodreads finally stepped down. I say finally in that most founders don't last that long, I think, after an acquisition. So he stepped down in 2020 or 2021, and he was replaced because they have a CEO of Goodreads. And this woman replaced him, and I thought, ooh, maybe that like there's someone fresh in. Maybe now we're gonna start seeing some changes, but literally nothing yet.
I would be so motivated if I were you, based on this information. Like I've not dug into like Goodreads and their, you know, their pulse, so to speak. I would be so motivated because you've got a Goliath asleep at the wheel, and you're on fire, right? Great place to be in.
You got some smooth stones. You can just knock that Goliath out.
That's right.
Honestly, I don't reshare anything where people are, you know, very anti Goodreads or Amazon or Jeff. That's not the strategy I have. It's always very positive. So I also don't like when I know people mean well, but I don't like it where supporters of us will comment on other people's posts and they'll say things like, ew, Goodreads, you should be using StoryGraph. And I hate it because I'm like, no, you're introducing our product to this person in a very negative fashion. And this person was just celebrating that they reached their Goodreads goal. Like it's meant to be celebratory. Do you know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. So I never expect any of my friends, anyone in my life to use StoryGraph. I never ask them to, I never tell them to. It will just be, if anything, like a joke like we just had now. But yeah, it's funny because I do have like, you know, if I've been on dates with someone or whatever and they'll say, oh, I use Goodreads, does that mean we... And I'm like, no, I don't care. You use what you like.
No, not at all. Well, it was also just a joke for real because I was going to pull up the next best thing to Goodreads, I suppose, if I'm pulling out a list, is my Audible list because I'm more of an Audible listener than a book reader. And my list scrolls for a very long time. And I also have literally every one of their badges.
Wow.
Except for two. I'm only missing the bottom two.
What are those two?
Mount Everest. Well, that means that this epic award is given away when you listen to something as long as a day. So I have to listen to a book that's 24 hours.
I just finished one that's 24 hours. Listen.
You've got Everest if you were on Audible.
No, I'm not. I actually never was because I only started listening to audiobooks 2021. And a big driver was, I need to connect with all the audio listeners because I don't really understand their pain points. And now I do.
The Watchtower one says, look at your stats. Attention must be paid. Do it a lot and you're well on your way. So if I look at my stats often, which it does tell me like listening time, daily, monthly, total, I guess I've listened to 3 months, 28 days, and 46 minutes worth of books.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm a master listener level. Like I got them all. Like I'm all the way up there. Like I'm a master according to Audible, and I have all the badges. That's kind of fun.
But you haven't told me. You see what he did there? He was like, look at all my amazing Audible stats. He's still not told us the type of books he listens to.
Well, I was saving it for plus.
Okay.
Show's over. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Say bye.
Oh my gosh, what a cliffhanger to leave you on. I'm sorry about that. If you're not a plus subscriber, you can change that right now. Changelog.com/plus. It's better. Oh my gosh, it is better because you're going to hear about the books I like to read. And trust me, you're going to want to read them. And I would gladly tell you in Slack or something like that too. It's not a secret, but wow. Just to hear us talk about some of these things here in audio, what a treat. So $10 a month, $100 a year, drop the ads, get awesome bonus content and exclusive content, directly support us, and get closer to that cool changelog medal. Changelog plus. It is better. Okay, enough with the hard sell, Adam. That's over. The end of the show is here, but what's coming up is a lot of great content. This Friday on Changelog and Friends, we have a epic, lengthy show from our trip to that conference. Yes, that conference. You can learn more at thatconference.com. It was such a blast going to that conference. Seriously, the red carpet was everywhere. They did such a great job. And next week, Jared and I are talking to OSI Executive Director Stefano Maffoli about the definition for open source AI. It's going to be awesome. And a reminder, Ship It is back. Well, it's officially recording again. We haven't shipped a Ship It episode, but that's coming soon. Subscribe at shipit.show. And I want to remind you because I love people hanging out with us in Slack. We have a lot of vibrant subchannels in our Slack. It is free and everyone is welcome. Changelog.com/community. Okay, big thank you to our friends and our partners at Fly, TypeSense, and Sentry. Start an app for free at fly.io. Get blazing fast in-memory search from our friends over at typesense.org and use our code changelog to get $100 off Sentry's team plan. You can do that right now, sentry.io. Oh my gosh, how did I forget this? We launched a new album, Dance Party. It's on Spotify. I think it may be on iTunes. We had a little bit of a delay there. It's also at changelog.com/beats. You'll find all of our beats there, as a matter of fact. I dare you, I double dog dare you to try not to dance when you listen to this. It's epic. BMC, we love you. Thank you so much for all those awesome beats. Okay, this show is officially done. We'll see you on Friday.